Well, and St. Stephen's Day, all the young boys in the community, young men, would early in the morning we'd all get together, and we would do what we call the Wren Boys. Go out with the Wren Boys. Now it was only the boys, and of course, if you were too young, you wouldn't be old enough to go, and once you got so old, you would stop doing it. But it was a very formal thing, and now we weren't the first people of my generation weren't the first to do it, like my father and I'm sure my grandfather's people and so on. They all had done it before, like long before my time. But so on St. Stephen's Day, we would all the young guys, sometimes we'd have 15, probably up to 20, and we'd all get together, and we would start at one end of the community, and we would visit every house in the community with the Wren Boys. And so what we would do is we would have a Christmas tree, little Christmas tree, probably about that high, which we would decorate and put a bird on the top. So a little ceramic bird or whatever decoration from a tree, and we would have one guy would have a whip, stick that long, little bit of twine, and keep everybody in line. And then what we would do is we would go from one end of the community to the next, and we would visit every house, and we would march in line down the road, so very formal, and you didn't get out of line, and whoever carried the tree depended on the house you were going into, and so on like that, right? And the people, everybody of course knew we were coming because it was St. Stephen's Day and it was an old tradition, and people would give us money to bury the wren, and of course they'd also give us cake and candy and so on because it was Christmas, right? And so we would go from one end of the community to the other, visit every house, and we were well received, and people were very generous. And then at the end of it, we would divide the money among whoever was in the Wren Boys, and we burned the tree, is my memory of it, right? And so that was doing the Wren Boys. When we showed up at a house, we would sing or say, if you were like me, not a good singer, we would say, the wren, the king of all birds. On St. Stephen's Day was caught in the forest, up with the kettle, down with the pan, give us some money to bury the wren. And then when we would leave the house, we would say, with a pocket full of money and a cellar full of beer, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And of course, everybody knew we were coming. It was, very popular, right? And didn't have to explain to anybody what was going on, and people were very generous to us and so on, right? And it was a big thing, when you were young, too young to do it. I mean, you couldn't wait till you got old enough to be able to go out with the Wren Boys, right? And the older boys would organize it, so they knew the tradition, and to have the tree and the little whip and to keep us in line. And then if we're going into my house, like I would go, or going into my cousin's house, he would be the person to carry the tree first, and so on like that, right? But we did it never missed it. And it was done up until recently, probably done up till, I don't know if it's still done, I don't think it is, but done up till about 10 years or maybe 15 years ago. And it's an old tradition. I mean, it wasn't something that we reinvented, so it was done far back as anybody over there could sort of remember, right?
And how old would the boys be?
The boys, when you started school, you wouldn't be old enough now because you had to be able to walk a couple of miles too. So I would say probably when you were in about grade 3 or 4 or 5, so that'd be 8 or 9, and then by the time you got up to the end of high school, you'd probably stop. So you probably, when you were 13, 14, 15, like that, you give it up, right? And then the newer ones would sort of take it over, right?
And did your father and the brothers know that?
My memory is, my father had done it. And I'm sure my grandfather did it, and my uncles and my brothers did it, But everybody in the community, all the young boys would do it, and people from every household. So there wouldn't be anybody left out,
And you were predominantly the Irish community, weren't you?
We were Irish, a little bit of French, but mainly Irish. Yeah, we considered ourselves to be Irish more than anything, right?
Ryan was your name.
Ryan was my name, and then the other common names there would be Daly's, Hanlon's, Lee's, Corcoran's, and so on like that, right? And it'd be Kelly's and Whalen's, but yes, almost every name in the community would be Irish.
And one thing you mentioned, you have a recollection of burning the tree.
My memory is that afterwards, like once we had visited every house and had our money collected, then once we divided it, we would go down in the landwash and, divide up the money and so on. But then my recollection is we would burn the tree, yes.
Because at home in Wexford we used to burn the Maybush.
Yes.
The night on 1st of May.
Yeah.
So you burn the tree.
We'd burn the tree, yeah. Again, that's my memory, But I'm sure if we did it, it was done before our time.
Would you burn it outside?
Burn it outside, yeah. Just be a little tree, And of course, you couldn't get it all to burn, but you burned it the best you could, right? Because a little green fir tree.
And that was St. Stephen's Day.
That was St. Stephen's Day, and that's what we called it. Boxing Day to us was a newer term. And we couldn't wrap our head around where the term boxing came from at all, right? But to us it was St. Stephen's Day. Yeah. It never missed, never.
And you were saying as well, you dress very formally. You dress.
Yes, you weren't in a costume or anything, but yeah, you would be. It was a very formal occasion, and you couldn't wait. The young boys couldn't wait till they were old enough so that they could go and be part of it, But when we were going wandering out throughout the community, it was very formal. We go in a straight line, and we more or less march, I guess, right? Tree at the front, the guy with the little whip at the end of the procession, right? So if anybody got out of line, you snap the little whip a little bit, right?
And would you bang the whip on the door going in?
No. You just say that little recitation, Duran Duran, the King of all birds. Yeah, but everybody knew we were coming, right? Yeah, and so we lived around the arm, so you could see the boys going up the other side of the arm, and see them going into all the different houses and so on, right? And you wouldn't miss any house. Went in every single house.
On St. Stephen's Day.
On St. Stephen's Day, yeah. Take us about half the day. We'd start not too long after daylight in the morning. That's when we would get together, pick up our group, and then of course you got to get the tree and get it decorated. Got to go down to the other end of the community, and then you got to cover the whole community. Wouldn't leave any household wouldn't be left out. Yeah.
Did you put up a Christmas tree with your lads? Christmas tree in the house at home?
Yes, we'd have a Christmas tree in the house too. Yeah.
And it'd be the same kind of tree you'd use?
Yes, except it'd be a smaller one, right? So the one in the house would be so big, but the one we'd have to carry it around, so it'd be, maybe 2 or 3 feet, tall, half a meter or so. Right?
Very similar to home.
Yeah.
We used to do a parade with the Maybush as well, holding the Maybush as well.
Yeah.
Some people did.
Yes.
Little ribbons on it.
Yeah.
And you were saying you used to put little ribbons on it. What did you put on it?
Well, we used to put different decorations now, and again, I think that we used to probably take them from home. But again, sometimes people, back in the old days before, people weren't too well off and stuff, people would make their own decorations. Like I saw you on your Maybush, you had eggshells and stuff, and the common thing to do would be to take an egg carton and every little indentation, you cut that off and paint it, and you make Christmas decorations out of stuff like that, right?
And there'd always be a bird on top.
My recollection is, it would always be a little bird on top, the wren. Now, probably wasn't not always a wren, but we'd always say it was the wren, right?
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And what are your own age? Are you talking the 1950s?
We would have had to do it, I left Riverhead, my family left Riverhead in 1972, and of course then I was just graduating from high school, so when we did it was in the 60s. Yeah, but it was done long before that. Yeah. And Riverhead was a noted place for the Wren Boys. There's not a lot of places in Newfoundland. There's another place in Conception Bay, Colliers, that was also noted for people doing the Wren Boys. Right, but over an hour side of St. Mary's Bay, Riverhead was the place. And the next little community, which sort of, adjoined Riverhead, was called Coos Pond. They also did it.
And they were different than the mummer, the fools?
There was no mummer, there wasn't mummering at all, no fools, no. Yeah, so it was very serious. I wouldn't say it was solemn, but a very formal occasion, doing the Wren Boys.